Hey everyone, in today's video, I will be showing you how to crochet these cute bear coasters. Whether you're new to crochet or have some experience, this tutorial is beginner friendly and easy to follow. I'll guide you through the process step by step so you can make your very own bear coasters. Let's get started. Here are the crochet abbreviations. And now let's get into materials. You'll need any color yarn of your choice. I'm going to use white. You will also need very small amounts of pink and black yarn, a 4mm crochet hook, some scissors, a stitch marker, and a yarn needle. Okay, now that we've gone over materials, let's start crocheting our bear coaster. We're going to start with a slip knot. After your slip knot is made, go ahead and tighten it around your hook. Alright, once we have our slip knot, what we're going to do is chain 5. And now once we have our chain of 5, what we're going to do is this very first chain that we made, we're going to slip stitch inside of that very first chain. So let's go ahead and place our hook inside of that very first chain that we made. After you place your hook inside of that chain, yarn over and pull through that chain and the loop on our hook to complete the slip stitch. And now this is what we've made here. We've made a beginner friendly magic ring, and we're going to work all of our stitches inside of that hole in the middle. Okay, now that we have our beginner friendly magic ring, let's begin round 1 by chaining 2. Now we need to chain 2 because we'll actually be doing 10 double crochet within that hole in the center. So now that we've chained 2, let's go ahead and make our first double crochet. Let's yarn over, and after you yarn over, you just want to go in that space, place your hook inside of that space, and then yarn over again, pull through that space. So now we have 3 loops on our hook, and now what we're going to do is yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, and then pull through 2 loops again to complete our double crochet. Now what we've done so far is our chain 2 and our first double crochet. So let's go ahead and mark this first double crochet of the round. We're going to place our stitch marker inside of that first double crochet. Once we have our stitch marker placed in that first double crochet of the round, we can continue making our double crochets. Now when continuing to make your double crochet within the center here, you want to make sure that you're crocheting on top of this yarn tail here. So we're going to yarn over, and here's our yarn tail. You want to make sure that's also on top of your hook when you're doing your double crochet. As you can see, that yarn tail is on the hook and on top of the round because we want to have that within our stitch so we can close up the piece later. And you just want to continue making your double crochet as normal. That was our second double crochet of the round, and we'll need to make 8 more. So yarn over, go within the center, make sure that tail is on top of your hook, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's our third double crochet. We'll need to make 7 more. So just continue placing your double crochet within that center, and I'll meet you guys at the end of the round. Okay, we're on our last double crochet here. So we're going to yarn over, go through that center, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. And that completes our 10 double crochet. Now you want to make sure you count your stitches just in case. Now once you have 10 double crochet, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove our stitch marker from that first stitch, that first double crochet that we made. And now what we're going to do is place our hook inside of that very first stitch that we made, where we just removed our stitch marker. Go through that stitch, yarn over, pull through that stitch and the loop on your hook for a slip stitch. And then we are going to yarn over and then pull through that loop to chain 1. And now what we're going to do is pull on this tail here so we can close up that hole in the center. And if you crochet it on top of your tail, you should be able to successfully close it with no issues. And it's going to look all pretty like this. And now we're going to begin round 2. I'm going to go over this with you guys really quickly because it can be a little bit confusing. This stitch that looks like our last stitch is not. It's our slip stitch and our chain 1. That stitch right before our slip stitch is our actual last stitch. That's where we'll be ending our rounds. And this stitch that we slip stitched into is where we'll begin our rounds and where we'll begin our first stitches. I know that was a lot of information, but I am going to break it down for you guys so you understand. Okay, we're going to begin round 2 by chaining 1. We have our chain of 1 here from when we ended last round, and now we're going to chain 1 again. So we have a chain of 2. Now what we're going to do is this first stitch here that we slip stitch into, we're going to make a double crochet within that first stitch that we slip stitched into. So yarn over and go inside that very first stitch that we slip stitched into. Go through that very first stitch with your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 to complete a double crochet. And now we're going to make another double crochet within that same stitch that we slip stitched into. We're going to complete our double crochet, and by placing 2 double crochets within that stitch, we have a double crochet increase. And now let's go ahead and mark this first stitch of the round. So that first double crochet we did within that stitch, we're going to go ahead and mark that as the first stitch of the round. Now that was our first double crochet increase, and we're going to continue doing double crochet increases all the way around. So let's go in the next stitch and place 2 double crochets within the next stitch. So this will be our first one. That was our first double crochet, and now we're going to go back inside of that same exact stitch and place another double crochet to make a double crochet increase. And like I said, this will be our second increase. Now we're going to go into the next stitch and do another double crochet increase. So we're going to place 2 double crochets within the next stitch. Now you just want to continue this pattern of placing 2 double crochet in each stitch, and I'll meet you guys at the end of the round. Okay, we're at the end of round 2 here. So as you can see, we have our last stitch right here, and then we have our slip stitch and chain 2 here. So let's go ahead and place our last double crochet increase within this last stitch. Okay, at the end of round 2, you should have a total of 20 stitches. So go ahead and count your stitches and make sure you have 20. Once you count your stitches and you have 20, what we're going to do is slip stitch into this very first stitch of the round here. So we're going to remove our stitch marker, And we're going to place our hook inside of that very first stitch that we made. So just place your hook inside of that stitch, yarn over, pull through that stitch and the loop on your hook to make a slip stitch, and then we're going to chain 1. Okay, now we're going to begin round 3. We're going to chain 1. We already have 1 chain here. We're going to make 1 more. So we have a chain of 2. After you have your chain of 2, what we're going to do is make a double crochet increase within that same stitch that we slip stitched into. So this very first stitch right there. So yarn over, go within that very first stitch that we slip stitched into, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 to make a double crochet. And now we're going to go ahead and mark that first stitch as our first stitch of the round. Now once we've marked our stitch, what we're going to do is make another double crochet within that first stitch. So yarn over and go back into that same stitch and place another double crochet for a double crochet increase. Now that was our first double crochet increase. Now what we're going to do is go into the next stitch and place another double crochet increase. So yarn over, go inside of that next stitch and place a double crochet. After you've placed your double crochet, you want to yarn over and go through that same stitch and place another double crochet for a double crochet increase. That's our second double crochet increase of the round. And now we're just going to continue placing double crochet increases all the way around, just like round 2. So let's go into the next stitch with another double crochet increase. Now we're just going to continue this pattern all the way around, and I'll meet you guys at the end of round 3. Okay, we're at the end of round 3 here. We have our last stitch, and then we have our slip stitch and our chain 2. So we're going to make our last double crochet increase within this last stitch here. Now that we've made our double crochet increase, we should have a total of 40 stitches going around. So make sure you count your stitches and make sure it's 40. So once you count your stitches and you have 40, we're good, we can move on. So what we're gonna do is remove our stitch marker here. And now, once you remove your stitch marker, what we're gonna do is place our hook inside of that very first stitch where we removed our stitch marker and make a slip stitch and chain 1. Okay, let's begin round 4. And round 4, we'll start by placing 1 single crochet within that same stitch that we slip stitched into. And then what we'll be doing is placing 1 single crochet and the next 16 stitches. So we have a total of 17 single crochet. So let's go ahead and make our first single crochet in the same stitch that we slip stitched into. So place your hook inside of that same stitch that we slip stitched into, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over and pull through 2 to make a single crochet. And this will be our first single crochet of the round. So we're going to go ahead and mark that with our stitch marker. Now that was our first single crochet. Now we're going to make 1 single crochet and the next 16 stitches to have a total of 17 single crochet. So just continue placing 1 single crochet and the next 16 stitches, and I will get back to you guys once we're done with our single crochets. Okay, this is our last single crochet here. So from our first stitch to here, it'll be 17 single crochet. And now what we're going to do in this 18th stitch here is we're going to place 5 double crochet within that stitch. So let's yarn over, go into that 18th stitch, and make a double crochet. Now this is our first double crochet within this stitch. Now what we're going to do is place 4 more double crochet within this same stitch. So we have a total of 5 double crochet within that same stitch. So let's yarn over and continue placing our double crochet within that same stitch. So we have a total of 5 double crochet within that same stitch. Okay, after you've placed your 5 double crochet in that same stitch, that's going to be our first ear. Now what we're going to do is place 12 slip stitches. So let's go into that next stitch, and we're going to do our first slip stitch within that next stitch. So place your hook in that next stitch, yarn over, pull through that stitch, and then pull through that loop on your hook to complete your slip stitch. That was our first slip stitch, and now we're going to do 11 more. So we're going to place 1 slip stitch and the next 11 stitches. So let's go into this next stitch here and do another slip stitch. And now we're going to do 10 more. So we have a total of 12 slip stitches. Okay, after you've done your 12 slip stitches, this is what it should look like. And now what we're going to do is do another ear. So in the next stitch, what we're going to do is place 5 double crochet in that same stitch so we can have another ear. So let's just go into this next stitch here with 5 double crochet. And now once we've placed 5 double crochet in that same stitch, we have our other ear. And now what we're going to do is place 1 single crochet in the next 9 stitches. So let's go into this next stitch here with a single crochet. That was our first single crochet, and now we're just going to place 1 single crochet in the next 8 stitches, so we have a total of 9 single crochet. Okay, this is our last stitch here. We have our last stitch, and then you can see our slip stitch and chain 1 is next to it. So we're going to place our last single crochet of the round here. And now our bear coaster is officially, well, not officially, but almost complete, because I'm going to show you guys how to give it a clean finish. So let's just go ahead and cut our yarn, leaving a long tail, so we could weave in the ends afterwards. And after you cut your yarn, you can just pull up your loop. And now I'm going to show you guys how to finish off the piece nicely, so it looks real cutesy, real demure. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove our stitch marker here, since we won't be needing that anymore. And now we have our long yarn tail here, so we're just going to thread this onto our yarn needle. Okay, now what we're going to do is that same stitch that we took our stitch marker out of, so that very first stitch of the round, we're just going to go through that stitch with our yarn needle like this and pull through. And after you pull through, what we're going to do is this last stitch here, we're going to go through that back loop only. So just the back loop. You see how there's 2 loops? We're just going to go through the back loop and pull through with our yarn. And as you can see from doing that, it makes a very clean finish. What we made, like, it looks like a regular stitch, and you just want to adjust the tension on it so it matches the rest. And now what we're going to do is just flip our piece around, and then we're going to tuck this yarn tail in. So we're just going to go through a few stitches and weave in this yarn tail. And now once you've gone through those few stitches, what you want to do is create a loop. So just go through a stitch in the back and create a loop like this. And once you have your loop, just pull your yarn tail through there and pull tight, and that's going to secure that. And we're just going to cut our yarn and knot it. And now the same thing we did on this yarn tail, you're just going to do it on that remaining yarn tail we have in the middle here. Okay, now we're going to be adding the cute little face onto the coaster using our black and our pink. So let's go ahead and start with our black yarn here with our yarn needle. And we're going to start by placing the eyes. Okay, to place our eyes, what we're going to do is count 8 stitches apart on round 2. And that's where we're going to place our eyes on each of these stitches. So 8 stitches are between the eyes. So let's start on the right. We're going to go from the back and we're going to come out on this stitch here. Once you find your stitch, you just want to pull through with your black yarn. And now what we're going to do is insert our yarn needle on top of the stitch and come back out where our yarn is sticking out of, and we're going to pull through. After you pull through, you can see a little eye has formed. We're going to go ahead and repeat that process one more time. So go on top of that stitch and come out where our yarn is sticking out of and pull through. Now that completes our first eye. Now what we're going to do is count 8 stitches to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And on the 9th stitch is where we'll place our eye. So we have 8 stitches between our eyes. So we're just gonna go back where our yarn tail is sticking out of, go through that stitch. And now we're gonna come out on that other stitch that we have from counting our stitches. So count 8 stitches, and we're gonna place our eye on that 9th stitch. So we're just gonna go in from the back and pull our yarn tail through. And now we're gonna go on top of the stitch and then come out where our yarn is sticking out of and pull through. Now we're gonna repeat this process one more time. So you just wanna go on top of that stitch and come out where our yarn tail is sticking out of and pull through. Now we have completed the eyes. We're gonna move on to the nose. The nose is gonna be on 4 stitches in the middle. So these 4 stitches is where we'll place our nose. So we're gonna go back inside this stitch that our yarn tail is sticking out of, and we're gonna pull through. And now we'll be placing our nose on these 4 stitches. So we're just gonna go in from the back. After you insert your yarn needle, just pull through. And now we're going to count 4 stitches to the left. At the end of that 4th stitch is where we'll be placing our yarn needle in. So we have the nose across 4 stitches like this. Now you want to repeat this 1 to 2 more times. You don't want to have your nose too bulky, or else the coaster will lose its function. The cup will be wobbly and it'll tip over. So you just want to have a little small nose. I actually learned that the hard way when I was done filming this video, so you just want to repeat this 1 to 2 more times. Now once you've placed your nose, what we're going to do is turn our coaster around to the back. And now what we're going to do is come out in the middle of these little lines we made. We're gonna go in the middle of all those lines from the back. So we're in the center of all those lines and we're gonna pull through. And then after you pull through, you just wanna go through the center of your piece. So in the middle of that easy magic ring we made, we're just gonna go through the center of that and pull through. And that completes our nose. We're just gonna turn our coaster around now and tie a knot with these 2 yarn tails and cut them. Okay, now that we completed the eyes and the nose, we're going to place our blush 1 stitch away below the eye. So this stitch right here and this stitch right here is where we'll be placing our blush. So we're just gonna insert our yarn needle from the back of the coaster and come out 1 stitch away below the eye, like this, and pull through with our yarn. After you pull through, you're just gonna go on top of that stitch and come out where our yarn is sticking out of, like so. You're just gonna pull through with your yarn. And then you're going to repeat this 1 more time. So you're gonna go on top of that stitch and come out where our yarn is sticking out of and pull through. And that completes our first little blush. Now what we're going to do is insert our yarn needle back in that stitch we just came out of and pull through. Now we're going to do the same thing on this side. So you just want to insert your yarn needle one stitch away below the eye from the back of the coaster and pull through. Now what we're going to do is just go on top of that stitch. We're going to insert our yarn needle on top of that stitch and come out where our yarn is sticking out of and pull through. And now we're just going to repeat that one more time. We're going to go on top of that stitch and come out where our yarn tail is sticking out of and pull through. And now what we're going to do is insert our yarn needle back inside of that stitch we just came out of so we can have our yarn at the back of the coaster, like so. And that completes our face. Now what we need to do is just take these two pink yarn tails and tie them and cut them. Now that completes our bear coaster. If you guys enjoyed today's tutorial, be sure to check out this one where you'll learn how to crochet cinnamon roll. Peace.